Welcome to the Blueprints Podcast. I'm Isabelle here with Michael, and today we're going to talk all about the blueprints for growing alongside your business.
I heard the definition recently. Schooling is like you have to go to school, like of the institution, right? You have to go to high school to get your high school diploma. You got to go to college to get your 4-year degree, or if there's associate degree or whatever. But that's schooling, right? You have to go through the institution. Education is much broader. Education is the process of learning and taking knowledge, and then as a human being, being able to take that knowledge and turn it and applying it into the marketplace. So you can get educated through the schooling system, but you can also get educated through reading books. You can get educated through having a coach. You can get educated through, so many other resources outside of just the formal schooling route.
Absolutely. And both you and I have gone more the education route of we, don't have a lot of formal school in our background. And so tell me a little bit more about your background. I mean, high school, what did college look like for you? And then getting into
I never liked school. And so, school for me was a playground to have fun. Mm-hmm. I was able to do enough to get where I needed to go. But from an early age, schooling wasn't for me. And I found out, later on in life that this entrepreneurial desire inside of me, this creative part of me, this insatiable stuff to get out and put my hands on stuff and do, move around. Like it just didn't work well for me sitting in a classroom for 8 hours a day and reading books and stuff like that. That's just not how I learned, So I knew kind of early on that I didn't necessarily want to do higher education, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And it was really a journey of finding what do I love.
And similar for me, I think the journey of finding what you love, we've talked a little bit about this in past episodes on this podcast, but really taking the opportunities that you have and seizing them and going, all in on what's in front of you mm-hmm. and looking for every opportunity. Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about your background then with the entrepreneurial journey. Like, how did you start your first business? What did that look like? Because I want to lean into, the education path of there's other ways outside of college.
Yeah. For me, it really was, there's a great book called The E-Myth that I read a long time ago, and it refers to the entrepreneurial myth. And Michael Gerber wrote that book, and it's well-known business book. One of the best of all time. And he talks a lot about the franchise model, but he talks about this thing called the entrepreneurial seizure. And mm-hmm. I kind of had an entrepreneurial seizure, and it really started with because your mom, mm-hmm. and I got married, and she was going to be a doctor. So she was getting all the higher education. We were in debt, man, up to our eyeballs, and undergrad and then med school, mm-hmm. 2 years of med school plus stipends. We were living off the stipends because both her and I were doing some work and not making a lot of money. So yeah, I read a book a long time ago. Really, it's just kind of a story about how you get in business because you're excited about something. And then 2, 3, 4 years as a company grows, you find yourself like disenfranchised because it's a lot harder to run a business than it is to be like just an entrepreneur that you thought you were going to have all this freedom and be able to be creative and do all this fun stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a great story about that process. But I knew inside of myself when your mom and I found out we were pregnant with you that
right.
I needed to do something, and I had no idea. So I went with my gut intuition, and I went out and bought 4 houses, no money down.
You do have a really good gut intuition. That one always surprises me.
I did buy a program. I bought a coach. It was an infomercial, late 12 o'clock, Carlton Sheets. A lot of people have heard of this guy, but he was a guy that did a lot of real estate and would give you a program on how you could do that, and you could make money on houses. So that was really my first adventure, but I jumped into it. I had no idea what I was doing. And, eventually it led to getting into the building industry. My best friend, Aaron, still best friends to this day. He was in the construction industry going to Michigan State. And so him and I started a business together, and I learned a lot from him. And that was sort of the beginning seeds of starting Custom Built back in the day.
Yeah, that's awesome. I always love an entrepreneurial seizure.
Yeah. Because if you're an entrepreneur, you know what that's like. You're like, what happened to me? You know, what happened to me? This thing has taken over my life. You know, you hear people that own businesses say things like, you know, you can never turn it off. You can never do this. Well, that's not owning a business though. That's the business owning you. And there is, you know, again, it takes education. It takes mindset shifts. It takes a lot of work. And that's what I love about sales. That's what I love about business, is that your mindset is always being challenged.
Yeah.
And what I currently have that's working in front of me is because of what I've created. You know, recently was challenged by my coach that like, hey, whose issues are, you know, we're having issues over in marketing or over in production. Whose issues are those? And my first thought is like, well, Isabel's in charge of marketing. It's her issue, right? Or Josh is in charge of production. Like, it's his issue. But as the leader of the organization, like they're my issues. I'm the one with the vision that I want to grow, that I want to, you know, continue to grow 20 to 40% a year and continue to, you know, do this stuff. Well, I didn't have the systems in place. You know, I didn't have the SOPs. I didn't have the leaders underneath you in place, or, you know, that sort of thing. Not that I have to do that. You get to do that. But, you know, I haven't built myself up as a leader yet, you know, and so I got some gaps, right? So every issue in the business, if you're an entrepreneur, every issue in your business is your issue. When you find yourself blaming your people, you're really talking to yourself. And so owning that is the first step to breakthrough, using other, you know, getting some education, getting a coach. Will start with you recognizing you're the issue.
Yeah.
You know?
So in your entrepreneurial journey, you had different points of, you know, excitement. You've had different points of growth, different points of wanting to burn the business down. Like I've heard you kind of talk about, and I've watched a lot of that too. So you said, you know, if you're an entrepreneur, you know what an entrepreneurial seizure feels like. But also, I think if you know an entrepreneur, you probably have seen that journey play out. So for you, over the years, what have been some of the keys to your continued education?
The big transitions for me were, I wanted to have autonomy. I wanted to be able to run something, to create something, to build something, and just knew that was inside of me. And not that you can't find that in a company, but I just didn't. You know, I didn't find that in a company that my vision fit within.
Yeah.
And so as I began to, you know, recognize that, and it started Custom Built, a lot of things happen, man. Life happens. You have goals, and then COVID hits, and you have goals, and the Great Recession of 2008, you know, the stock market, you know, housing in Michigan. I mean, houses went from being worth 200 to being 100 to being worth 500 to being worth 250, and houses that were in the $1 million range, they couldn't even sell them. You know, you couldn't, you know, you couldn't sell a $2 million house for 500,000. You know, they're just, it was crazy. So some of those events, so you got the outside events that happen, and then you got your stuff. So the outside environment can be great, but you want something more. You want to be larger as a business, or you want to do bigger projects, or you want to do more creative projects, or, you know, you want to have more people that work for you. You don't want to have to do all parts of the business. Well, that's all the personal development work, the inner work that a business really begins to be a reflector, you know? So if I'm not happy about something, then, you know, I'm not happy with me.
Yeah.
You know, and that's been the deeper work that I've been forced into as an entrepreneur, is really having to face failures by learning from those failures. Like, you're going to grow like that. That's how I've learned everything. I used to go back and look at every deck that we built and would see like where it's warping, how the deck boards failed. So I love to go back year after year because I learned a lot from that. I also learned a lot from talking to a guy that's been building for 40 years. So I would meet builders and talk to them and find out what worked, what didn't, because from your failures, you learn so much. From your successes, you learn some, but from your failures, you learn way more. And that's the fun thing about being an entrepreneur. It also is like, you have to face your failures, and it doesn't feel good a lot of times, you know, but learning to rewrite those failures as this is success.
Right. And I think what you said a minute ago about personal education and growth, that is such a key point when it comes to further educating yourself in your career path, right? we've talked like the business won't go further than you go personally.
Right.
So, if you're looking to advance your business, like look to advance yourself.
Right.
Look to advance your communication skills, the way you lead your team, the way you face your failures.
Right.
Not like how can I really grow the business? It starts with you as the entrepreneur.
Right. It's a delicate balance, right? It's like you set goals, but how you set goals, how you think about those goals, how you implement those goals, right? Like I used to set, year-long goals. Now I look at 90 days as like a year. So I got 4 years within a year. And that's just, again, a little bit of a mindset shift. We're coming up at the end of 90 days right now. Like working in a business and having a plan for the next 90 days and then getting to the end of that and then taking a day to get out of the business and as a leadership team come together and sit around the table and look at our results and look at what worked, what didn't, and then implementing new strategies for the next 90 days. Yeah. And then you go out and do it. I mean, didn't used to run the business that way, and it really gives me an opportunity as a human being to clean the sheet, like, oh, I thought that was important last quarter. Didn't get done. Must not have been important, right? Something else must have taken importance, been more important than that.
So we've got to talk a lot about how you grow alongside your business as you're shaping your business. And I want to go back to, the decision that you made to get into business and how you really grew early on. So I know for you, you had a couple years between high school and when in the college years and when you actually started your business. So tell me about like that point when you started your business. What did you use to educate yourself to really get going?
Books. I went to seminars, entrepreneurial seminars, to learn about what does it take to be an entrepreneur. We didn't really have the internet back in 1996, but I just picked people's brains. I met with people one-to-ones, talking to other entrepreneurs, and set big goals.
Yeah.
And failed.
Yeah.
Regularly, but didn't look at that as a negative. Looked at that as a positive. Like, man, I set this goal and I achieved part of it. But for me, I would say probably some of the key transformational moments is when I hired coaches. So definitely met some people along the way, some successful entrepreneurs and other people that very educated, some people with a lot of schooling, some with, very little bit of schooling like me, high school education. But yeah, I mean, it really came down to the relationship and hiring coaches that would, specifically be able to help me in my business implement systems and processes and people and putting those key components in place so that we could have a business that could start to grow and not have so much pain and challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been such a good conversation. I think as we wrap it up here, one thing, obviously, we're 20, 30 years from when you started Custom Built. So there's a lot more resources out there available. I mean, the internet, AI, all that stuff if somebody's looking to start a business. But I think what you just said there at the end is so important to stress, like in a digital world especially, that relationships and coaches make all the difference.
Yeah.
In your journey.
Yeah. Implementation of knowledge in order to create value for the marketplace. The basic definition of an entrepreneur or what we do is we take something of lower value and we turn that thing of lower value to something of higher value to the marketplace. And when you do that, people will buy it. So when you provide something that brings value to another human being, that's when you have a successful company.